Red Bull returning home on Saturday to take on Chicago Fire. Max, appreciate you coming on, giving us a couple of minutes. This Fire team, I think one of the more interesting ones going into the season, made some offseason moves, finally feel like stabilized the coaching area as well. When you look at what they've done through the first 7 games, 2-3-2, where do you feel like this team is at first 25% of the season?
I feel like we're starting to get some confidence and some juice, especially at home. And we're recording this on Friday. Tomorrow is our only road match of the month of April. So if we can get anything from this game tomorrow, obviously you guys are flying high first in the conference, so you're feeling really good. But, if we can just get a point on the road, I feel like we feel very good about our chances moving forward. 3 games at Soldier Field coming up. A lot of new faces, like you said, and a lot of late signings, too, when you talk about Kuipers and Acosta. So you think the chemistry is starting to improve and get better. We're starting to get Kuipers some more touches and some more looks on target. We've been playing around with the back four. Obviously, we've had a bulk of injuries and the suspension last week, but I think things are moving in the right direction. We're playing better on the road. Haven't gotten that first road win yet, but I think the team has been much more competitive away from Soldier Field than last year.
Those two names you mentioned specifically, Kuipers, Acosta, one thing that has definitely done for the Chicago franchise, the talent level has been elevated. And okay, maybe some early season trying to figure out who's going left and who's going right, but clearly this is a more talented team than it's been the last couple of years.
Yeah, and that's the tough thing always, especially when you're playing one match a week, is you think about the late goals we allowed on the road versus Philadelphia versus Columbus, and the results necessarily weren't there. But aesthetically, it was a much more pleasing brand of soccer to watch out there on the pitch, day in and day out. And two guys, in Kuipers and Acosta, not just the talent, but you talk about Acosta, proven winner. Great to add somebody who's been there, done that in MLS. You talk about a guy who's playing an MLS Cup the last 2 years. And that's also something it felt like was kind of lacking, which is improved, I think, the locker room, the discipline on the field, and just the attitude moving. We look much more dangerous moving back to front, I should say, this year in 2024.
Max, tell me about Shaqiri. It felt like, obviously, last year he took a long time to get used to Major League Soccer, and maybe that signing, and listen, there's no disputing how talented he is, but I felt like that signing didn't necessarily have the big impact that Chicago was hoping for. Has he become a little bit more adjusted to being in the States, Major League Soccer, this year, year number 2?
Yeah, I think he's become more adjusted. I think with him, like you said, the talent's always been there. And certainly, when it comes to international play, he's a guy who has absolutely always stepped up for his home country. But with the Fire the last couple of years, it's been more so, I would say, a lack of consistency. And we certainly saw the Shaqiri that everybody was hoping for last week. Slots home the PK to give us the lead, and then the magnificent assist forward to Gutierrez to get the game winner in the 2-1 win versus Houston. But I think it's just about consistency, because you think about the Miami game at home last year in early October when we won 4-1. That's the best I've seen Shaq play. And he's a guy who's always gotten up, when the lights are shining bright, is what my partner and Dason Robinson and I like to always say. You're always going to get the best out of Shaqiri, but what are you going to get out of Shaq on a Saturday afternoon in April? And what we saw last week, I think, is we're hoping to see more of, I should say, going forward.
Yeah, in his third year, he's kind of the guy to continue it. Take 22, almost throw that away, because it usually takes a year for everyone to get acclimated. Last year, maybe a little bit better. He even with the elevated talent level of a Kuipers and an Acosta, you need Shaqiri to be the guy who is pulling the strings for this Fire team to be successful.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the first handful of weeks, when you look at, what Kuipers necessarily hasn't done, it's just because of a lack of opportunity and a lack of chances. And it was trying to figure out how to feed him the ball more, because he was a guy who was, in his prior stops, getting 2 shots on target per match, and the opportunities just simply had not been there with Chicago. So I think him figuring out how to work with Shaq and play off of Shaq versus also play off the other midfielders when they're in. We just saw Chris Mueller back in the starting lineup for the first time in about a year. Goody came in off the bench, but how to work with those attacking midfielders, them and Marin Haile Selassie as well. And Kuipers, I think, is kind of growing into this role, had more opportunities last week than he had in the prior few matches.
You mentioned Red Bull playing really well. You guys come off a good win as well against Houston over the course of last weekend. Confidence-wise, this team may be turning a corner. Is that fair to say?
For Chicago, I think absolutely that seems to be the case. And this is a great litmus test. I mean, always facing New York Red Bulls, while the coach may change, while the, even the bodies out there on the pitch might change, the DNA is something that Frank Klopas said in his midweek press conference. The DNA is still there. And it's funky because Houston, the team, we just came in facing, best in the league in possession, over 60%. They possess the ball 20% more than you guys do, but Red Bulls has never needed the ball to have success. And as soon as you guys get it, it's just so dangerous. And obviously adding Forsberg has made, the brand that you guys are playing to go with Morgan, who's healthy and just flying high, and Van Zer obviously coming off a great game and a great year so far. I think it's going to be a fun end-to-end match, and I'm excited. I'm interested to see how much we, attack going forward, what the possession numbers look like kind of early on, because you guys don't need a lot of the ball to be that successful.
Max, appreciate you coming on, giving us a couple minutes. I know a busy time for you. Getting ready for what? Doubleheader, minor league baseball doubleheader today, right?
Yeah, doubleheader today. We actually, we started this at 11 a.m. I just had a tarp pull at 10 a.m. So it's already been quite the active morning here.